Bhagavan and Arjuna, and Bhagavan sort of mentions to him about himself and gives him certain tips on how to meditate to him. And as soon as he has done this, the first 11 slokas of the chapter 10, what Arjuna does is he sort of returns with certain questions. And here I was mentioning that these questions are kind of emerging not out of his ignorance, but of his desire to know better and know more. So there are two sorts of students who do not do any homework and they come to the classroom, and when the teacher sort of wants to go ahead, suddenly they'll say, but this was not taught to us properly. We haven't understood it because they're just lazy. But Arjuna is not like that. He's giving sort of proof to Bhagavan. He has done his homework. He has listened to all 9 chapters and the verses of this chapter so far till verse 11. And then he's sort of using some of the phrases and words which Bhagavan has used to describe himself to explain what is that Brahma Tattva. Here, Brahman is appearing in the form of a human being, which means Sopadika, with a certain name and form. Brahman as such is Nirupadika, means without name and form. Sopadika means with title. So, with Upadhi, Sopadika. So, therefore, what Bhagavan is trying to do here, he has told a few things to Arjuna about what is that ultimate thing that we need to know about truth, about Brahman, without that. Tattva Darsana is we talk about. And then he has given us certain long list of actions to be done, like what is Nishkama Karma, then you do Upasana, then you do Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, continue to do your work, or you take Vividisa Sannyasa, go do Sravana Manana Nididhyasana. And Arjuna was scared, what happens if I die in the middle? Bhagavan says, no worries, you will be reborn at a level where you can restart from where you have left. And then these are questions coming again and again. Arjuna, as a bright student, sort of comes back with a question telling Bhagavan that you have yourself sort of have told me that you are Param Brahma, which is the Lakshya, the goal of this whole discussion or dialogue, and how you reach there with the help of a few adjectives. These are the Lakshanas. Lakshanas are what? Asadharana Dharmo Lakshana. So, and Itara, you know, it sort of doesn't describe anything else other than that. Okay, that is what particular thing is sort of what describes exactly what is intended to be said without misleading you to something else. That is because, for example, if you say who is an animal, okay, then you said the any living being which has 4 feet. The moment you say this, somebody might say, okay, so what do you think about say kangaroos or humans who try to use mostly their 2 feet, not 4 feet? So are they not animals? Or where do you place, for example, the reptiles who don't have any legs, like, for example, snakes and all? Do you put them in the animal kingdom or not? So this Lakshana then fails. That is not an exact description. So this description of Bhagavan, these Lakshanas, we are saying that Paramadhama, the foundation and the destination of all of us, that the Parama Bhavan, you are the creator, or everything is happening, and you are Purusha Saswatam, not Anitya. You are completely without Adi and without Anta. Divyam. Divyam is what? Which you cannot easily understand. And that Madhusudana gives a beautiful thing that he mentions that, it's not Prakrita. It's not Prakrita, it's beyond. Aprakrita Tvam, Divyam, that he mentions. Because whatever is Vyavaharika, whatever you can understand is not Divyam. Then Bhagavan says that this particular thing, Maya's quality is Daivi, and you see, understand me as Divya. He has mentioned earlier that the fools confuse me as a human being, but please understand, this is a Divya Rupa. It's not so what you see with your physical senses. Therefore, Arjuna sort of has kind of mentioned that you are saying that even the gods and rishis have not been able to understand you, and so then they cannot. All these gurus and others have also mentioned the same thing about you, and you have also told this to me, and therefore, please, if the devatas and the rishis cannot understand you, how can I understand you? I cannot. And why devatas and rishis cannot understand you? Bhagavan himself have mentioned that I am Devanam Adihi. I'm the originator of everything. I existed. I'm Ajam. I'm Anadi and Ajam. I'm without a birth and I was there before all these people came up. How do they can claim that they know me? At the same time, he sort of is encouraging Arjuna to believe that he can. So he's essentially hinting that it requires two things: Aneka Janma Krita Punya, then Jnana Ichha, then God's grace, and then Jnana Sadhana also. Then together that sort of benefits and enables a person to be at the feet of the Lord, to arrive at the truth. That is how we can mention it. And then in the verse number, so we had done it. Arjuna has sort of mentioned that in the earlier verses. He's saying, Sarvam etad ritam manni. I consider all that I have said is true. Yanamam vadasi Keshava, O Lord Keshava. Keshava is, we have already discussed, even the person whom both Shiva and Brahma also consider worthy of his kindness. So his Keshava, that means his kind of his supremacy is reinforced, re-established here. Nahi te bhagavan vyaktim vidur deva nadanavaha. Neither the demons who have terrible amount of power, they were kind of the brothers of the devatas, and the rishis, the wise, the intellectuals, the sadhakas, the meditators, they cannot even know you very easily. And therefore, O Bhagavan, then who knows you? That's the question, isn't it? Then he says in the next verse, it continues another four slokas. We will read and then make sense of them. Svemevatmanatmanam vettham vettatvam purushottama bhuta bhavana bhutesha deva deva jagatapate. Then in this verse number 15, he's sort of stretching his argument and telling Bhagavan, do you know actually who can know you perfectly without any sort of distraction, any kind of insufficiency or limitation? It's only you who can know yourself. Because, and there are a lot of such statements we have read earlier. Swami Vivekananda, just a few days before he passed away, had written in his diary. There's a very beautiful book. If you find it, you can read it. It's called Swami Vivekananda and Himself. And in that book, somewhere towards the end of this, is a compilation of his statements wherever he has referred to himself. He writes at a particular point that whatever I have done, and it's quite possible that I shall not cross 40. I'll leave before I'm 40. So he was about 39 years of age that time. Then he says, only a Vivekananda can know what a Vivekananda has done. Because he knew that I do not know how to express it, but this is something deeply spiritual coming from very depth of his realization. You're saying that all that you are saying is kind of Leela, but what is the consciousness? What is that energy which drove me to run around the whole world and speak about Hinduism, speak about meditation? And I'm leaving so early, and he had a lot of health problems like diabetes and heart problems. Now there is this realization that it's very difficult now, whether you are a son or a husband or a brother or a teacher, we all presume that others will understand us. Actually, nobody understands us. The challenge is, and the tragedy is, that we also do not understand ourselves. That's why we're human. Because if we fully grasp who we are, all our actions will kind of completely change. We are all the time surprising ourselves. There are certain ways in which we repetitively do things and we understand it. We are doing it because of these factors. But just remember and understand, as Shastra says, all of us are kind of representing millions of births of experiences and impressions and sanskaras and skill sets and some problems. And therefore, what sort of fructifies, what sort of comes up, can always surprise you. So don't take it for granted that this will not happen through me, and don't also presume that I'm bad or I'm going to suffer like this, or I'm very good and I'll never suffer like this. So these are all mental presumptions we have. But in case of Bhagavan, this sort of an insufficiency or limitation doesn't apply. One of the reasons it doesn't apply is because he is Sarvajna. And Sarvajnatva includes, by the very definition, knowledge about oneself. So, how do we know about Brahman? Are we capable of Brahmajnana? Otherwise, there's no liberation. No, we can. But how do we know that? The texts advise, the great gurus have advised that guru upasadana. So you go close to a guru, sit and listen to the text, do yoga, sadhana, everything. The technology is already mentioned, and also what is the truth that is mentioned in the Vedas, the Upanishads. But who has authored these Vedas? This is Ishvara Mukhanishriga, isn't it? It has come out of the mouth. And then Nishwasita eva, as if he is breathing. He's not an author. Because the moment you give him authorship, he'll become human, or he'll become a Purusha, he'll become a Vishishta, he'll be a person with a few adjectives, but he's beyond all adjectives. So he cannot have authored anything. Now, what is it? This is Nitya Satya, that is the argument. That is a Chirantana Satya. I was thinking about today, what way are we talking about it? Why we say Veda is Nitya, or how do we argue about it? You think about it. Now, as per physics, if you presume that the whole universe started with, say, Big Bang or supernova or whatever. Now, I sometimes think, and I'm asking you the same question, if you ask yourself whether Newton's laws of gravitation, did exist prior to that? Did they have a validity or not? Or did they have a validity only because then we have objects and then we have gravitation force working, gravitational fields get created? Only much later, isn't it? So, what happens with the laws? Are the laws a product of something? Or because certain things come, the laws come into force? That means laws are applying to a certain incident. Laws as principles existed even before. Now, is the laws of physics, are the laws of physics, laws of chemistry like laws we legislate in parliament? You think about it. Laws of nature are not prescribed, are not legislated often, they just exist. And similarly, the truth about all that we see in this universe just exists, but it's discovered and it is applied, it is talked about depending on what particular phenomenon we are trying to explain. So, say we are doing science, we are trying to talk about the birth of a baby and the kind of problems it has, then we are bringing a pediatrician, isn't it? And he sort of has his own pediatric experience, his science and research, he comes in. But if you look at it, the basic foundational laws with which the specific knowledges, the specific bodies of knowledge have been created, these primary principles exist much before anybody talked about a childbirth, isn't it? So they're in a certain way nitya. In the same way, you try to understand this Upanishadic statements are kind of nitya. Now, uh, we just now know about 32,000 verses in the Vedas. They think there are 100,000 verses. Where are the others? Okay, they are kind of lupta, and we don't need in Kali Yuga, but in future we may need it. They will appear it because these rishis or the wise men who noted down these particular Sanhitas or Brahmanas or whatever Upanishads and Aranika texts were essentially trying to compile the truths which sort of pre-existed their very authorship, their very appearance on earth. That is the way we look at it. Therefore, if you apply this, he's saying this beautiful, the first thing, that's why I'm trying to make it simpler for you. Swayam evat manat manam bettatvam purushottama. You know yourself, by your own intelligence. Because your intelligence is unlimited and you are unlimited. Limited intelligence cannot grasp an unlimited reality, an unlimited truth. It can talk about it the way we do. But aporoksha jnana happens when only our limited consciousness breaks its barriers and it ascends to a level where it becomes indistinguishable from that unlimited intelligence and therefore is capable of seeing the truth and experiencing the bliss. So, in order to have sakshatkara of Satchidananda Ananda, Satchidananda Swarupa Brahman, what is required is that is what the Vedantic sentence says, Tattvamashar Aham Brahmasmi. It's not an egoistic statement. Please meditate on it. To be able to grasp the essential truth, the inherent truth of this vast, multipolar, multiple, diverse, mutually contradictory, phenomenal realities, our consciousness has to be sharper, subtler, vast, that it can capture it. And if it can, at that moment, it is as good as the Chaitanya or consciousness of God. In that sense, Tattvamasi, that human beings also have God-like. It's not because they'll have 4 hands or 20 hands, or they'll have a lot of powers, not in that phenomenal sense, but in an extremely subtle sense. And that is therefore a way where by meeting God, we experience divinity. By being divine, in the fuller sense of the term, the physical body will remain limited, but the consciousness will embrace the limitless, vast, and and permanent and ever present, that blissful truth and reality called Satchidananda. So therefore he's saying now, Swayam evatmanatmanam bettatvam purushottama. You alone know who are you. The Brahman alone knows who is Brahman. Then why these Vedas? Let's abandon it, because only he can know. We cannot know. Why we talk about it and waste our lives and time? No, there's a possibility that Bhagavan says that there is a way in which he sort of enables you also to reach that level of consciousness where you become non-different. And that's the only way, by being complete non-different from that consciousness. How does that happen? Grace is very important. That's what Ramanuja always emphasizes. Even Shankaracharya and others, Madhusudana Saraswati also, the Saivas and the Kashmiri Saivites, all the sectors of Eastern India, they always, sort of always emphasize on that element of grace and surrender. It's an extremely important concept. So the grace is important. But in addition to that, we have to do our homework. And that's why Arjuna is wanting to do that homework. So he says, Oh Lord, you alone can know yourself, because the Rakshasas, the demons, the gods and goddesses, the angels, the divine beings, and wise men on earth, wise men and women on earth cannot know you. And therefore, you only know yourself. Bhuta Bhavana, then he sort of gives another 4 adjectives to explain why he's addressing him as He Purushottama. And Purushottama is not the superior being among men. No, not that. Purushascha, Purushasa aso uttama iti. That Purusha which is Uttama, because with Purusha we have Sopadhika and Nirupadhika Rupa. The same Purusha or Atma or Bhagavan or Brahman with Sopadhika Rupa can become Hiranyagarbha, can become different many things. So Sopadhika and Nirupadhika, Chetana and Achetana, is not beyond all that. Therefore, he is Purushottama. So he is beyond any adjectives, any descriptions. Cannot be captured by words we use. Can only be grasped through meditation and consciousness. This meditation is not mental meditation. So he says, Abhang Manasogochara. By mentalizing, we cannot know. Then how? By transforming ourselves, by going there. We have done that. That it is a state beyond Nirvichara Samadhi, but Ishvara Pranidhanat Va. So he has mentioned that, Paravairagya. When you go to that ultimate level of complete Nirvikalpa Samadhi, then meditate on the Vedanta Vakyas. Then the sort of quick transformation takes place, and then you have complete Sakshatkara. So, Bhuta Bhavana, you are the creator of all these material realities. Bhutesa, also the master of these material realities. You are the boss. Deva Deva Jagatapate. And you are not just a Devata, you are Devanam Deva. So you are the God of gods. God of so this is the henotheistic concept, right? You accept Bhagavan is one, God is one. And if somebody is saying that, okay, Hindus are kind of idolaters, the Hindus are worshipping three, whatever, 33 million gods or something, right? 33, 3.3 million, 3.3 million gods, whatever they say. Or how much is it? 33 million, 33 crores or something, right? So 330 million, whatever. Now the question is, I mean, this is all joke actually. We just worship a few gods. It's just mentioned somewhere. People want to make fun of it, not a problem. So you need to tell them that, look, this is actually just one thing which has become many, and we have a clear understanding of what it is. It's like to take a bath in the Ganges. You can go to any point where there's a ghat, there's a bathing hut, and you can take a dip in the Ganges, which is safer for you. We also have different names and forms and traditions. We have different paramparas. That doesn't make God multiple. It's just one thing with different names and forms. So you think Bhutesa Deva Deva Jagatapate. You're not only the boss, but you're also somebody who takes care of all of us. Because Bhagavan has mentioned himself that I am Bhuta, then he had mentioned that this Jagat, that I take care of him, but I am not there. I am not Bhutastha. Okay? So, Bhritabhan na Bhutosta. So, I take care of this material universe, this material realities, the human beings and the animals and plant kingdom, animal kingdom, everything. But I am not established in them because I'm beyond all that. Like space and atmosphere, I'm just beyond this. I'm everywhere, and also it's like immanence plus transcendence. God is transcendent at the same time immanent. So it's everywhere and also above. Because not in the physical sense that he's higher up. People look up in the sky for God. That's stupid because actually he's all right. So you actually intelligent guys just close their eyes. They don't look up because God is not above, he's all around. And the best place who is there you can find him is actually Hardakas in the sky of your own heart. So then in the next verse we'll do the Sankara Bhashya, but so let's look at how Sankara Bhashya is, then we'll do the next three verses today. We have time. These are simpler ones. And then what is saying, Yatah Tvam Devadinam Adihi Ataha, because you're sort of existing prior to the existence of gods, because they are all punaravartins. They come and go. That you have already mentioned earlier, and I fully remember. Brahma Bhuvana Lokaha, right? You have already mentioned they come and go. They are not nitya. And then he says that Swayamiti, and therefore you know yourself, Swayam Eva Atmana Atmana Betta. You know yourself, by your own consciousness. Tvam, Betta means you know. Niratisaya Jnanehi Aishwarya Valadi Saktimantam Ishwaram. So you know whom you know, who is that Brahman, you know Swayam. So there is a subject object dichotomy there. How can you be the subject and also the object, isn't it? How can a car move itself? No, there has to be a separate driver or a crane or something to move the car. So how do you know yourself? He's saying what? Niratisaya Jnanehi, because your Sarvagya, your knowledge is superior to all, so that is Niratisaya. There is no better knowledge. There is no better consciousness in that. Niratisaya Jnanehi, Aishwarya Valadi Sakti Mantam. So with that infinite knowledge you have, that infinite consciousness that you are, with help of that, you know both your Sopadika and Nirupadika Rupa. So you know your Sopadika Rupa. What is the Hiranyagarbha, who is Prajapati, who is Lord Vishnu, how the sansara created. You know all that by being Nirupadika. So he's saying Aishwarya, Jnana, Aishwarya, Valadi, Sakti Mantam. So the moment you say Sakti Mantam, that itself makes God Sopadika. That is a title. Sakti. He has Sakti. That itself is a proof that he's talking about a God with title. That is Sopadika Ishvara. Punaha. So, sorry, Purushottamaha. Hey Purushottama. And he's sort of addressing me, so Purushottama. Bhutani bhavayati iti bhuta bhavana. Because you create these material realities, whether it is the fish or the water, or the plants, the animals, or human beings, you are the creator of all that. Bhuta Bhavana, Bhutesha, Bhutanam Ishaha, and you are the boss of this whole material universe. Hey Deva Deva Jagatpate. Hey. Now, there are a couple of interesting things which are mentioned in Anandagiri. I'm just reading it out without wasting much time before we go to Madhusudana. He's saying, Atmana Pratyekena, okay, Avishayateya iti yavat. So, how do you know there is something called Pratyak Chaitanya, that pure self that is which is there in us? Pratyekena, you know, it's not Porokhena. It's not, it's sort of not far away from us. You are meditating on yourself, right? So Pratyekena Avisayataya. Now, do you know God, oh Lord? You know yourself, like I know my pen, I know my laptop, I know my files. No, these are Vishayataya. I know them as objects of my knowledge. But Bhagavan, when he knows God, he knows himself, he is not looking at God as object of his or her knowledge. Who is addressed as Purushottama here? It can be man or woman, whatever, because these things don't apply there actually. So, what it's mentioned here is that avishayataya, because the moment you say the jnaya and the jnata are two different people, remember there is dvaita. There are two people there, isn't it? There is an object of knowledge and there is a subject of knowledge. The knower is the subject, the object is what he is trying to know. So there is a subject object dichotomy, there is a difference. That is dualism. And that's not acceptable to us. Because the moment you have dualism, you have all sorts of problems. And therefore, he's saying, Avisayatya iti yava atmanam. And atmana atmanam, you know atma by your atma. So avisayatya, that means you are just being conscious of yourself. And that atmanam is what? Nirupadikam rupam. That is again the name, the consciousness that you are without name and form. That means the Brahman is fully aware of the Brahman, as Brahman, without name and form. What are you talking about? Is it confusing? No. It's essentially saying it's a self conscious consciousness. It's luminous consciousness, which is aware of itself, aware of its luminosity, all the qualities that is Upadika, and also per se that it is consciousness. So it is conscious consciousness. In that sense, we have to understand it. Nirupadika rupam. Na cha tava sopadhikam api rupam अन्यस्य गोचरे तिष्ठति इत्याह niratisaya. So because you have that, because your reality is such that a person cannot experience it by using his senses, parokhyataya, or pratakhyataya. He cannot know it as different. So it is very difficult. So anyasya gochara tishtati. So with other sense perception, you are not available to be known. Purusasya asau uttama uttamascha iti. So, what is that Purushottama? Khyara khyara atita punna chaitanya rupatvam sambodhanena bodhyate. So, this is one interesting thing. We have already discussed what is khyara and what is akhyara, isn't it? Khyara is what is anitya. There is some change. What is akhyara? Bhagavan has said, I am the akhyara Brahma, which is avyakrita. Punnamadaha punnamidam we say. It continues to be there. The sansara has happened. Is it khyara? Is the Bhagwan becoming smaller to create the world? No. He remains what he is. This samsara appears. This is an appearance, and therefore he is akhyara. So khyara and akhyara. Khyara is whatever is phenomenal, material. So he is beyond khyara and akhyara. And then what is that? It's called Purna Chaitanya. That infinite consciousness. Okay? Rupatvam. That kind of dharma. That is what is being referred to as Purushottama. But we have a confusion all the time that Jagannath is referred to as Purushottama Dhama. No, he is superior to all gods. That is how the Vaishnava are saying. That is why he is mentioned as Purushottama. But you look at how beautifully they are mentioning. This is the Upanishadic jnana which they are emphasizing here. That is beyond all names and forms. Sarva prakrititvam sarva kartritvam cha kathayati bhutanamiti. So this word, bhuta bhavana and bhutesha maheshwara. And bhuta bhavana, you are creating what? Sarva prakrititva. That Maya thing he has mentioned, right? With using Maya, I create the samsara. That means this appearance happens with the magic of Maya. And who is that? Mainam to Maheshwara. Maheshwara is Bhagavan. So with my magic, everything appears. The Jadugar is true. Jadu is false. That's what Thakur Ramakrishna used to say. So he's saying that Bhuta Bhavana. So both Kartritva and Prakrititva. So he is the creator, he is the initiator of everything that we see. And Sarveshwaratvam Aha Bhutanamiti. You know that Bhutanamisha. उक्त उक्तम ते सोपाधिकम रूपम देवादीनाम आराध्यताम अधिगच्छति इत्याह देवति. He's saying, look here, you are also sarva aradhya rupa. Why? Even gods are worshipping you. Devanam deva. So they sort of bow down to you. They are moving with your compassion, with your guidance, with your permission. And therefore, you are the supreme boss worthy of worship of everybody. What to talk about us? Sarveswaratma aha. And so Jagatah Sarvasya Swamittvena Palayatritvam aha Jagatpatehe. Okay, so that is broadly it. And there is nothing great in Madhusudana here, more or less the same thing. Yatastvam tesam sarvesam adi asakya jnana cha ataha. So he's saying that others cannot know you, that yourself you have mentioned. Therefore, he's kind of mentioned that you know yourself. Swayam eva anya upadesadi अन्य उपदेशादिकम् अंतरेण एव त्वम् एव आत्मना स्वरूपेण आत्मानं निरुपाधिकं सोपाधिकं च निरुपाधिकं प्रत्यक्चेतन अविषयतया सोपाधिकं च निरतिशय ज्ञानेश्वर्यादि शक्तिमत्वेन व्यक्त जानासि न अन्यः कश्चित्. Actually, Madhusudana Saraswati in a certain way is more accurate than what twist Anandagiri has mentioned. He is reducing that Bhagavan knows himself as Nirupadika self, that that Advaita thing he's bringing in. But actually, if Bhagavan is Sarvajna, and if he knows everything, if he can know the Nirupadika thing, which is most difficult to know, then Sopadika easily he will know. So therefore, Bhagavan knows is both Nirupadika and Sopadika, and that can be proved by looking at Sankara Bhashya, because he's saying that sentence is very clearly mentioned that which way Niratisaya Jnanehi, that is without Avishayataya, that is correct. That he knows that Nirupadika Rupa, there is no object of knowledge. The knowledge itself is being aware of itself, that is fine, the consciousness. Jnana, Chetana Swarupa. And then he's saying he knows what Jnaneshwar Jnanehi Aishwarya Valadi Saktimantam Ishwaram Jnanasi. So you know whom? You know that Jnana Aishwaryavan Ishwara. That you know. That is what? That is Sopadika Rupa. So it has some name and form. So you know yourself as invisible, and you know yourself with your visible forms, your powers. Okay? So Bhagavan knows his nature or his dharma with and without description. Sopadika and Nirupadika. With and without any external manifestation. Okay, so that is that. I personally think that Madhusudana is much more accurate here. Okay, and then अन्यैः ज्ञातुम् अशक्यम् अहं कथं जानीयाम् इति आशंकाम् अपनूदन् प्रेमोक्तंठ उत्कंठेन बहुधा संबोधयति. He's saying, हे पुरुषोत्तम त्वद अपेक्षा सर्वेपि पुरुषा अपकृष्टा एव. No, what is a beautiful bhakta, Madhusudana is saying that, look here, no one can actually know you because you are so superior, so subtle, so sukshma. No one gets to know you. How can I know? You're saying Devatas cannot know, Danavas cannot know, Suraganaha, they cannot know, and I, stupid fellow Arjuna, can know you. I'm a Manushya, I'm ignorant, I'm very limited. Therefore, he's kind of, in order to know and get rid of his own fear and to sort of please Bhagavan, he's sort of kind of doing a bit of advocacy, on behalf of the human race. So he addresses him with 4, 5 adjectives: Bhuta Bhavana, Bhutesha, Deva Deva, Jagatpatehe. That's how Madhusudana is saying, Ho Purushottam means what? Todapekya Sarvepi Purusha Apakrishta. That is the typical Vaishnava thing, that Krishna is to Bhagavan Swayam, our others are avatars. He is the ultimate being. So everyone is inferior to you. Okay, Apakrishta eva. Atah tesam asakyam sarvotamasya. Okay, tava sakyam eva iti abhipraya. You can only know yourself because they are all inferior to you. So they cannot obviously have any clear understanding of who you are. Purushatumatvena vidrunati punah chaturvi sambodhanaihi. Then he again sort of elaborates what Purushatama means by using these words Bhuta Bhavana, Bhutesha, Deva Deva, Jagatpati. These are elaboration of that word Purushottama, which is fine. We don't have to fight with it. And then he's saying, Bhutani Sarvani Bhavayati Utpadayati iti ye Bhuta Bhavana. You create the material universes, Sarva Bhuta Patihi. So you are the Sarva Bhuta Pati, not a problem. Or Pita, you are the father. Pita vi kasid na ishtaha tatraha he bhutesha. Sarva Bhuta Niyantaha. Now, this is the beautiful part of Madhusudana when he brings a kind of poetic explanation, brings a bit of poetry into Vedanta. It's very lovable. Okay, what he's saying, that there are a lot of cases where the sons don't love their father. don't respect him. It's quite possible, isn't it? There could be a fight between son and father. Now he's saying that no, you are not that only father, but you also Ishta. You are desirable all the time. And therefore he's saying Bhutesha, you're the master of this whole universe. And then sometimes a guy who controls everything, it's a powerless father, he's an invalid or he's not so educated, you have become very powerful, you don't respect him. Quite few stories show these kinds of stories. Now, but he's actually a very powerful person and he's very knowledgeable, then you obviously bow down to him. But it's quite possible he's saying that Sarva Niyantapi Kaschid Na Aradhyaha Tatraha He Deva Deva. But it's quite possible that somebody has a father who is very powerful, but then his son thinks he's not worthy of worship. It's quite possible, isn't it? You have seen a lot of stories like that. I mean, you have cases like Mahatma Gandhi's son didn't like him. You have many cases where the princes have sort of, broken, away from their father because they don't think they are worthy of their respect. But he's immediately saying, no, that is not so in your case because Deva. Even the gods worship you as Aradhya, and therefore you are the father, you are the Niyanta, and you are also most respectable and worthy of worship. But he's saying that, okay, somebody may be that he is actually worthy of worship, but what use is it actually if it doesn't take care of you? He may be very powerful. He's just like a lot of people are saying that, okay, my son is a prime minister. You had in Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh. Ho Chi Minh was so finicky about his identity as the leader of the people that he never had any contacts with his own family. And I read somewhere that when his sister died, he didn't visit because he just lived alone and he wanted to be people's leader and he didn't want anything to come between him and people. So he didn't allow anything. He didn't have any relationship with his family. He never visited his village. Also, he just wanted to be representing the people of Vietnam. In a certain way, it was very cruel towards his own community or the family. On the other hand, he sort of was the friend of everybody in the society. Now, it's quite possible that a person at that particular moment, he was Sarvaniyanta, he was also Ishta because he was very powerful, and then he was also the elder member in the family, but then he was not taking care of them. He didn't have any compassion for them. Then he's saying that, then that is kind of again refuted. So he's saying that Aradhyopi kasid na palaitritvena Patihi tatraha he jagatapate. It's quite possible that a person may be all this, but not doesn't take care of us. So he's saying jagatpatehe. So you are actually palaitri. So you are sort of taking care of us. You are the bharta. You are the caretaker of all of us. Hita hita upadeshaka veda pranitritvena sarvasya jagatah palaitaha. In which way he takes care of it? He gives you bread and butter every morning, sends you a cup of coffee. No, he doesn't do it. What does he do? He's saying he's Palaita because he tells us that Ishtanishta thing, what to do, what not to do, that is mentioned. What is truth? He has all mentioned that in the Vedas. That is the source of his greatest compassion because he has sort of given you the keys to truth and not the religious karma kanda truth which the Brahmins have been indulging in, but he has given you the superior key to Upanishadic secrets of freedom. And therefore, in that sense, is the Palaita. Just imagine how beautifully that caretaker, not in a physical or emotional sense, which he is. Even the blade of grass doesn't move without his compassion, isn't it? That's what Sandhya Upanishad says. And here, what Bhagavan, the greatest help he has done to us, is by giving us truth. And it's a very beautiful way to look at God's grace. Okay? And then he's saying that you are Sarva Palaita. सर्वस्य जगतः पालयितः एतादृश सर्वविशेषण विशिष्टत्वं. So all these adjectives you are rich with that. सर्वेषां पिता सर्वेषां guru. You are the father of all, you are the guru of all. सर्वेषां raja jagatpateः, sorry, bhutesh. You are also the king of all. अतः सर्वैः प्रकारैः सर्वेषाम् आराध्य, and therefore you are worthy of worship of all. Iti kingvacyam purushottamam tapa iti bhavaha. So what to say that we call you Purushottama? Look at why we call you. I'm just explaining it, making it very clear for you. Okay? So in the next verse, he's sort of saying He's giving a rationale or a reason as to why he deserves to hear what Bhagavan has already explained in more detail. So he's giving a rationale. Bhaktu maharsase sena divya hyatma vibhutayah yabhir vibhutivhir lokan imangstvam vyapyati sthati. Oh Lord, do you know what? You have to tell me the story again. You have already mentioned till now, but please tell me again. Why? Asheshena, please tell me without extra limitations. Tell me at length, Asheshena, without any sesa, without any leaving something. Sesa means what? You are eating something, you leave a rice, that is the sesa. You are leaving that, isn't it? Asheshana means what? In a comprehensive way, in an integrated fashion. So you are not keeping any desire left. There'll be no more curiosity in me. Then I'll feel kritakritya. Whatever I wanted to do, I have done it. But if you tell me, if you show the film to a guy, sometimes the children are funny, isn't it? After hearing the whole story, they said, okay, then what happened? They can do it. So is kind of Bhagwan is kind of explaining everything, and he's saying, Aseshena, please tell me, Divya, you're that Divya thing, which is already is mentioned. Divya means what? Aprakritattvam. So it's not material. It's not very easy to understand. Prakritattvam Divya, the Atma Vibhutaya. These are the Vibhutis. What is Vibhuti? That we have mentioned that multiple manifestations that happen as a result of your grace, that Vibhuti. Bhuti, happening, Vibhita, that we had discussed earlier. Yam Yavihi, with the help of which Vibhutis, Yavihi, Vibhuti Vihi, with these Vibhutis, Iman Lokangs, all these lokas means spheres of reality, the human reality, animal reality, different spheres, galaxies, solar systems, whatever. Tvam Yapya, Tishtati, Tishtasi. So you exist having pervaded with your vibhuti, with your manifesting capacity, with your manifesting energy, your energy that you radiate, your presence, having pervaded this whole universe, all spheres of reality, you exist. Now, as I have told you, literally you should never take it because that will create some confusion. Because one challenge will be so Bhagavan first creates reality, then he spreads his energy all the places, and then he exists. So he didn't exist before all the realities came into existence. So how did he exist? How did he create? Or he became God after creating and spreading his energy. So these are the childish questions which might emerge in the mind if we try to literally make sense of them. That is not the purpose of this statement. What he's trying to say is that what Bhagavan has already explained in verse number 4, 5, and 6 in chapter 9. He has already explained this, that I am everywhere. Sorry, everything is in me, I am not anywhere. And then saying that nothing is in me, I am not in anywhere. But he is essentially explaining that Sarva Vyapakata. He is inherent everywhere. He pervades everything, permeates everything. Because you cannot have anything appearing without that foundation, without that easiness. So, in that context, Bhagavan is explaining what is that Sarva Vyapya, that he has spread everything and he is existing. In that sense, it's not one after the other, because these are literary descriptions. The reality is just beneath what is described. Let's look at how Sankaracharya talks about it. Yasmad Asmad Idrisham Agocharaha. Okay? Agocharaha Tava Atma. That is your dharma, that is yourself. So you are beyond our physical senses. We cannot see it. You are not our Vishaya. Jigyasitascha. And therefore we are sort of, no, this is Anandagiri. So if you look at it, it's in Vaktum. Vaktum Kathaitum Aharshi Aseshana. You deserve, you need to say, it's very important for you to tell me about you without leaving anything to doubt or any speculation. Divya, the Atma Vibhutayaha. All your Divya Atma Vibhuti is about which you tell us. Why? Because he's saying, I want to know how to meditate on you. That is his main question. Atmana Vibhutayaha Yaha Ta Vaktum Aharshi. You need to tell me about what are the Vibhutis of your Atma. Yam Vibhuti Vihi, Yavir Vibhuti Vihi Atmanaha of your Atma by virtue of spreading these vibhutis. Okay, Mahatmya Bistarehi. So the greatness of these vibhutis that you have, Bistarehi, Iman Lokansvam Vyapya Tishtati. So you sort of pervade with the greatness of your presence, with your grace, this whole universe, and you exist. Please tell me about it, because I haven't fully understood it. And there are a couple of things from, yeah. So what he's saying that this vibhuti, that vyapyata, how Anandagiri explains is very beautiful. Yadwara, that vibhuti, by the vibhuti, yadwara, lokan puraitva, you have filled these different spheres of reality with your presence. Puraitva, vartate ta vibhuti, aseshena, vibhuti, aseshena vaktum aharshi ityartha. So please tell me, how do you pervade this whole reality? Would you stretch yourself? Or how does your energy spread? You need to tell me, well, how it works out. That is his doubt. And here Madhusudana Saraswati kind of very briefly mentions one or two sentences here. He's saying, Yasmad Anyesham Sarvesham Gyatum Asakya Avasyam Gyantavyascha Tava Vibhutayaha Tasmad Bhaktum. Because nobody else knows about these vibhutis and how they work, and therefore I deserve to hear more about it from you. याभिः विभूतिभिः अस्मान् सर्वलोकान् व्याप्य त्वं तिष्ठति ताः ताः तव असाधारणविभूतयो दिव्या असर्वज्ञैः ज्ञातुम् अशक्या हि यस्मात् तस्मात् सर्वज्ञः त्वम् एव ता अशेषेण वक्तुम् अर्हसि. So, it's basically a repetition of what Bhagavan has already mentioned and what Shankaracharya and others have mentioned. He's saying because these limited mind intellectuals whom we see on earth, including me as a student of yours, we are unable to capture that grace and that magic of your presence through which you create this universe and you hold it together. And therefore, in order for us to understand, which the Devatas and the Maharshis and the Danavas don't understand, you have to tell us at great length. Otherwise, it's very challenging for us. That's all is the summary of it. And in the next verse, if somebody sort of asks, but I have already told you, then he sort of mentions that in the verse 17 and 18. कथं विद्यामहं योगिं त्वां सदा परिचिन्तयन् केषु केषु च भावेषु चिन्त्योऽसि भगवन् मया विस्तरेणात्मनो योगं विभूतिं च जनार्दन भूयः कथय तृप्तिर्हि शृण्वतो नास्ति मे मृतम्. Katham vidyam, how do I know? Do you know why I'm asking this question, Arjuna? It's like this. I want to know you. I'm your student. I've worked very hard and have given you some evidence that I'm actually carefully listening to you. Now, how to know you? Please explain to me. Katham, how do I know you? That's what I say. Vidyam. Yogin, oh Yogin. You know why? Because he's Yogeshwara Krishna. Bhagavan has mentioned already that I'll give you Buddhi Yoga. And I'm creating with all my Maya. The Yoga Sabda represents several things here. Okay, Bhagavad is Yogeshwara because he creates that magical reality out of it. It just unfolds. So, Yogin, you are that adept in this yoga, in this whole Sankalpatmaka Buddhi, that anything you want, you create without any effort, without having agency in it, without getting involved in it. You mentioned Udasina, Vadasina. So, you are the greatest yogi that I have seen. He's saying, Yogin Swam Sada Parichintan. How do I meditate on you? By which way? By meditating on you. And how? Kesu Kesu cha Bhaveshu. And what are the ways in which, what are the forms and names that I meditate on you? In what way? Chintyosi, how do you become worthy of meditation? How to think about you? What rupa of yours? Should I think about your Sat Rupa or Chid Rupa or Ananda Rupa or Krishna Rupa, Rama Rupa? What particular bhava I think about it? Bhagavan Maya, how to, which way you should be meditated on by me? And then Bhagavan says, but didn't you listen to me? You are saying you're a bright student. You don't look like that because I have already explained that to you in 7, 8, and 9. And earlier also in other chapters, I have repeatedly mentioned who am I? And you are suddenly starting the coursework again, saying that, how do I meditate on you? Then Arjuna is very intelligent, says, yes, yes, I have understood, sir. You have told everything about yourself, but then I'm not very happy. I don't feel contented. I, it's like you remember your childhood. So you have heard a ghost story or you have heard a certain story from your grandma or your uncle. You have already heard the story. She has told this story to you one or two times. And then what happens to you? She has no stories. And then you say, okay, grandma, tell me that story. You say, what story? Not this particular story you had mentioned about two demons, how they sort of kidnap that little princess and how there's a prince who goes to, you tell me that story. He says, I have already told you twice. Yes, you have told me twice, but I'm not very satisfied. Can you do it again? The grandma starts telling that story again till he falls asleep. So here, Arjuna is sort of expressing two things. One, he has understood, but this understanding is not complete because the matter is very difficult to understand. The other thing is that out of love for that truth, he wants to hear it again because Bhagavan himself have mentioned that tat chintanam tat kathanam annonyam tat prabodhanam. It's very good, etadekam paratvam cha brahmabhyasam vidurvudha. So it's always good to hear about the Leela, the Aishwarya, Yoga Shakti, everything of Lord. That is very elevating. So Arjuna is being greedy. Is greedy for that particular Amritatva, that great story of the Lord. So he's saying Vistarena Kono Yogam Yuvatim cha Janardana. So you tell me, O Lord, about the Yoga Shakti, the whole magical thing that you do of yourself. Bhuya Kathaya Triptihi. Please tell me a little more. Tell me again. He's pleading before Bhagavan as one of his dear students. Sunnatva nasti me nritam. I've heard you, but not tripti. Tripti hi sunnatva nasti. No, I'm not very happy. I'm not very contented. Would you do it again? He's sort of pleading. It's this is the loving relationship of Bhakta and Bhagavan. It's not described as it is done in other literary texts, but it's very subtle. The relationship of love between Bhagavan and Bhakta is also there, not only in Bhagavata, also in Bhagavad Gita, but it's very subtle. And if you see it, you will understand it. That there is a lot of emotional bonding out there, isn't it? And Bhagavan is compassionate. He mocks at him, and then he shouts at him, and then he's explaining, and he's sort of trying to motivate him by saying that, you are the greatest fighter that I have seen. You are the greatest Vairagi, and you are Dhananjaya. You are a great sacrificer. He's doing all that. They sort of he's sort of holding his hands to elevate him to the next level, and he's also pleading like a child and tells Bhagavan, surrenders to him. This is a very deep emotional spiritual bonding here. And this is all it sort of says. And let's look at Sankara Bhashya. We have 3 minutes, and then whatever limited thing remains, we'll do that tomorrow. So he's saying Katham iti, how to do it. And there is a beautiful way why to know that rationality for a detail. Anandagiri uses a particular phrase which is very interesting. Dhyana Saukarya Prakara Prasnena Phalam Kathayati. That dhyana Saukarya, how that meditation will become easy to do. That is why he's asking, because he is actually not asking for himself. Arjuna is a very intelligent student. He's asking on behalf of the whole sansar, all of us, so that we'll benefit. So dhyana Saukarya Prakara Prasnena Phalam Kathayati. And Kathamiti. Yoga नामेश्वर्य तद अस्य अतिथि योगी this that yoga namaka aishwarya uska hai. He has that wealth of being in a state of pure consciousness and create this whole sansara out of simple sankalpa. Actually, this is just an appearance from Vedanta, but just imagine that he creates a Sopadika Brahman. He yogin, that is he yogin. Aham stavishtamati swam. We are dull-minded people, my lord. I understand, sir, you have already told this to me, but I'm stavista mati. So he's saying, Kathamiti katham vidyam vijaniham aham te yogihi tvam sada parichintena kesu kesu cha bhaveshu vastusu chintyusi. In whatever forms you are to be meditated on. Dheo, see Bhagavan Maya, how you will become subject of my meditation. And Anandagiri introduces a beautiful sentence here. He's saying, I am a very dull-minded person. Sthula buddhi, sthula matihi. Tvam kena prakarena satatam anusandha anusandhano Visuddha buddhir bhutva. First, I'll meditate on it. I'll do emotion, upasana, and as there upasana, my mind will become sharper, subtler, and I'll become more intelligent. So, Visuddha buddhi bhutva. So, I'll have Suddha buddhi samparna, and then nirupadikam tvam vijanya iti prashnaha. So, first I'll meditate on your sopadika rupa. That is what we have been doing till now. So, he will do upasana prakarana as we have already done it in the chapter 8. He'll do Sopadika Brahma Upasana, meditate on it, sharpen his intelligence. He'll do a Brahma as an Upasana. And then he will meditate on the Nirupadika Rupa as explained in the chapter 9. Okay, that is what he's saying. Keshu Keshu iti, this is the other way, Chetana Achetana Vedad Upadi Bahutvacha Bahuvachanam. Keshu Keshu, why? Because Bhagavan can appear in different Chetana and Achetana and different kind of names and forms, isn't it? So how to meditate on him? Do we meditate him in his Nama Brahma like Mahamantra or meditate him as Vasudeva Krishna? These are the questions. And Vistirana Atmana Yogam Vivutim Cha Janardana. So here he's mentioning that Vistarena Atmana Yogam Yogeshwarya Sakti Vishesham Vivutim Cha Vistaram ध्येय पदार्थानाम हे जनार्दन अर्धते गति कर्मणो रूपम. Why is it called Janardana? Have you thought about it? There is a dhatu called ardhane. Now this ardh dhatu has two meanings. One is that gati arthata, gati yachane or begging. So Janardana, here Sankaracharya is mentioning gati karmano rupam. So asuranam deva pratipakya bhutanam Jananam Narakadi Gamaitritvad Janardana. So Bhagavan sends whosoever violates the dharma to hell, isn't it? So whether it is against God or the Asura and all, they go to hell or they go to Swarga if they do good work. Therefore, he's called Janardana. But Madhusudana is taking another and he's saying Abhyuda Nishreyasa Purusartha Prayojanam Sarvehi Janehi Yachyate Itiva, or because all human beings, whosoever is here, is doing his sadhana, is Abhyudaya and Nishraya. So Abhyudaya is what? Swarga, ascendance. He'll go and come back. Nishraya is what? Moksha, Atmagyana. For both Atmagyana and Swarga Prapti, everybody is going with a begging bowl to Lord Vishnu or Bhagavan. Lord Shiva or whatever you call Parameshwara. And therefore, he is Janardana because everybody is begging him for his grace and for his benefaction, benediction. Therefore, both the meanings are given here, but Madhusudana says that no, it's because we all beg for love and his protection that he is called Janardana. This punishment aspect is not important. I respect Madhusudana here. I think he has a point because the punishing aspect of Bhagavan is not so important as his ability to even he's because he has mentioned apiche sudaracharo. Even if you are the worst of sinners, just take my name, isn't it? So Janardana need not mean that he sends also people to hell. That's a particular Brahmanical maybe twist that he has given. And Madhusudana being a bhakti tradition person, he sort of looks at Bhagavan is a great benefactor, is a universal benefactor, including for his sinners, including for people who hate him. Okay, we'll stop here and we will do the little Madhusudana thing which is left tomorrow because we have crossed the time limitation. So if you have any questions, you can ask. I'm just switching off the YouTube for the time. Yeah.